There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. You may be seated. Let me first welcome our guests in the gallery. We really appreciate your presence in this parliament today to share with us in this EPC. Just a few house rules. Unfortunately, as the guests in the gallery, you are not allowed to participate in the proceedings of this house. And when I talk about participation, I'm talking about, being excited and clapping hands or using your cameras or your phones. So unfortunately, those are the rules of the National Assembly. When you get excited, just smile, and then we continue. Thank you very much. Oh, yes, you can wave. Thank you very much. I will now ask the Secretary to read the order.
Debate on vote number 15, higher education and training.
I will now invite the Minister of Higher Education and Training, the Honorable Pando.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I must say, I don't recall the Chairperson giving these directives to the public in other budget votes. I think the Chairperson knows this is going to be a good, exciting budget vote. Nevertheless, Chairperson, Ministers and Deputy Ministers, dear colleagues, the Deputy Minister of Higher Education and Training, Mr. Buti Manamela, the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education and Training and Portfolio Committee members, our CETA CEOs, heads of our entities, student leaders and scholars, honorable members, our Director General and the staff of the department, heads of our post-school organizations and institutions, honored guests, my special guests, especially Professor Fanaroff, well done, the meerkat is complete. Ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends, good afternoon to you all. The past 3 years have been characterized, Chairperson, by events that I believe will have a fundamental impact on the post-school education and training sector. I wish to signal just 3 features of society that I regard as a challenge to action for the sector. The first is the hashtag fees must fall and decolonization of higher education protests. The second is the continuing urgent imperative for the production of skilled human resources able to play a role in knowledge creation in different spheres of human endeavor and to contribute to inclusive economic growth. This means also creating opportunities for enterprise development that can intensify job creation and produce innovative products and services for domestic and international markets. The third feature is the world's increasing focus on the fourth industrial revolution and its implications for business and education and other sectors in society. We're in the age of the pervasive influence of emerging technologies and artificial intelligence and need responsive skills and development research focus areas, as well as investment in order for us all to benefit fully. It is my intention to create a multi-stakeholder task team to advise us on how we in our sector should take up opportunities of the fourth industrial revolution. Chairperson, honorable members, I turn now to our budget. The 2018 budget marks the beginning of a new dawn for post-school education and training. It's a decisive response to calls for free education. It honors the call by the Congress of the People that the doors of learning and culture shall be opened. This is the promise President Mandela and Mama Albertina Sisulu wanted to see realized, and we are pleased that this year we honor them through allocating the most significant increases to post-school education since the dawn of democracy. Through this funding, we signal that universities and colleges are expected to make a radical contribution to South Africa's development. University subsidies increase by 30%. The National Student Financial Aid Scheme funding increases by doubling. The TVET college sector gets an increase of 45%. Community colleges and skills development levies do grow, but grow more modestly. And honorable members, you're allowed to clap even if the gallery is not. The budget is 89.9 billion rand. And its major components are university transfers, 38.6 billion, the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, 20.5 billion rand, skills development, 16.9 billion rand, TVET college sector, 10.7 billion rand, and community education and training colleges, 2.3 billion rand. For the first time, we in South Africa will have fully subsidized bursary funding for first-year poor and working-class students in public universities and colleges. Chairperson, as honorable members know, first-time entry students from families with an income up to 350,000 rand per annum are eligible to apply for the new DHET bursary. The scheme will be phased in over 5 years. The bursary conditions will include academic performance requirements as well as future community service. Very significantly, government has converted NSFAS loans of returning students to grants as well. Honorable members will be aware that we have had teething problems with the administration of this new scheme. I wish to assure honorable members that we are working closely with the National Student Financial Aid Scheme to iron out these problems. We will also continue with the pilot of a public-private partnership initiative known as the Ikusasa Student Financial Aid Program, which is currently offered in 12 universities and 1 TVET college this year. It will support just over 5,000 students. In the TVET college sector, honorable members, students in all years of study will benefit from the scheme. Our intention is to ensure that colleges become institutions of choice for millions of young people. The bursary allocation for colleges is 5.2 billion rand this year, and over 458,000 college students will benefit. We have begun to attract many more young people into technical and vocational colleges, and we will soon have more artisans, more technicians, and more technologists. In line with responding to new technology demands, we are modernizing our colleges to ensure they contribute to employment creation and enterprise development in South Africa. I'm especially pleased at the recently announced centers of specialization in TVET colleges. We will introduce the project in 26 colleges, offering 13 critical trades and occupations that are in short supply and responsive to our infrastructure and Pakisa projects. This is a 2-year pilot that we will use to identify more colleges and significantly expand the specialized college model. We've received committed industry support and partnerships for this project, and we hope to build on it. The National Skills Fund has committed 150 million rand to this pilot. I'm also very pleased at the completion of the new college campus at Tabazimbi in Limpopo province. 2 more colleges at Bambanani and Ngandla in KwaZulu-Natal will be completed soon. There will be dedicated attention to infrastructure development and maintenance this year. Our infrastructure management system will train 250 college personnel to develop and implement maintenance projects. I'm very excited at the three-stream school model proposed by the Department of Basic Education, as it creates an opportunity to increase technical skills in our country. We are working together to try and rationalize the number of diverse qualifications in the TVET sector. I'd like to acknowledge 12 young people in the gallery from 3 schools in Guguletu: Idim Kize Senior Secondary School, Fezeka Secondary School, and the Insikumo Secondary School. I'm really pleased they could join us, and I encourage each one of them to set their sights on a TVET college education. On community colleges, I'm really pleased, Chairperson and honorable members, to indicate that one of our significant statistics of success that I can share with you today is that as South Africa, we've achieved a significant decrease in the percentage of persons over 20 years of age with no education at all. We have made significant progress between 1996, when 19% of the population were without education, and now, when we have just fewer than 5% of over 20-year-olds with no education. Thanks not least to our Karikude literacy program. It is for this reason that we are going to prioritize piloting community colleges and increasing educational access for those adults who might not have finished school or may want to develop a new skill. We have 9 community education and training colleges with multiple sites around the country. They're currently operational and developing experience on what should be offered and how to reach people who wish to continue their education. I hope to draw on past experience of workers' colleges in South Africa as we develop programs to offer. We're putting effort into a national policy for lecturer development and support for the community college sector. And this year, 2.5 billion rand has been set aside for community education and training colleges. On skills and artisanal development, honorable members, I'm really pleased to report that audited national artisan numbers indicate an increase during 2015, 2016, and 2017, increasing the number of artisans produced by 50% from 14,389 in 2015 to 21,188 in 2017. We thus believe that the country will meet the National Development Plan's target of 30,000 newly qualified artisans per year by 2030. We have released the National Artisan Development Strategy for public comment. Our goal is to energize and expand artisan development. We are also continuing our consultation on the National Skills Development Plan, and once concluded, we will propose legislative changes so that the National Skills Development Plan can come into force in April 2020. In 2017, I was really thrilled to note that the National Skills Fund provided 886 million rands for 8,000 undergraduate students pursuing different qualifications in scarce skills domains such as accountancy and engineering. It also provided 254 million rand for 3,500 honors, masters, doctoral, and postdoctoral fellows. The NSF also hosts the annual Mandela Day Career Development Initiative. This is a legacy program that selects 67 learners annually from a different province in honor of the former President Nelson Mandela. This assists us in increasing the number of high-achieving students that are funded in scarce skills discipline areas. Honorable members, our universities have experienced very difficult challenges in recent years because several have had to massively increase their enrollments. This was unavoidable as government and universities had to contribute to overcoming the education inequities of the past. This, however, put our universities under strain. Institutions that were able to attract students from better off homes offset the decline in subsidy per student by increasing fees. I'm pleased that the additional government subsidy that will be phased in over the next 5 years will enable a systemic correction of the situation and lead to relief, at least, of some of the pressures experienced by our universities in recent years. Government has planned to increase subsidies from 0.68% of GDP to at least 1% of GDP within the next 5 years. The additional allocation for university subsidies amounts to 2.5 billion in 2018 and 11.3 billion over the medium-term expenditure framework. To complement these increases, our staff will work with all stakeholders within universities to develop a regulatory framework for setting fees across the university system. This should be finalized and ready for implementation next year. The framework will build on advice from the Council on Higher Education and will seek to ensure that annual university fee adjustments are justified and that university fees remain affordable. I am extremely pleased that our historically disadvantaged institutions are also going to receive a support grant of 2.5 billion rand over a 5-year period to support them with a range of development initiatives. And this year, our very important University Capacity Development Program, worth 934 million rand, begins. It's a comprehensive, transformative program that is designed to support academic and management staff at universities, promote student success, and enable curriculum and program development and transformation in national policy areas. The grant is being allocated to universities to enable them to implement approved university capacity development plans as well as intersectoral collaboration. There are a number of important partnerships that already exist under the Capacity Development Program. The first, the United States South Africa Doctoral Program. This program includes a network of 12 United States universities and 18 South African universities working together to implement 12 doctoral programs to enable 100 existing academic staff to complete their doctorates. Funding of 57.2 million has been allocated to this partnership. We also have the Entrepreneurship Development in Higher Education program, which we launched in 2017. It seeks to coordinate the development of an entrepreneurship platform within the university education sector in South Africa. We have allocated 17.9 million to strengthen the program over the next 3 years. The goal of the program are three-pronged, the goals: the development of student entrepreneurship, the development of entrepreneurship in academia, and developing entrepreneurial universities. The Capacity Development Program also supports decolonization initiatives. Decolonization means different things to different people, but I suppose it's primarily a curriculum and an institutional culture issue. Stellenbosch University is, it is reported, decolonizing 10 programs, including medicine and law. Johannesburg University has a foundation course on Africa that all students are required to pass. For my part, I commend these efforts, but I also agree with the former Minister of Higher Education, Minister Bladen Zimande, when he said in 2015 that when we talk of building African universities, we do not mean creating universities that are globally disengaged. They should be globally engaged, but not only by being consumers of global knowledge. They also must be producers of knowledge as well. Knowledge that is of relevance locally, continentally, in the South, and globally. This will indeed be truly decolonized higher education. I also agree with young leaders in our universities who have condemned the continuing vestiges of patriarchy, sexism, and inadequate attention to the safety of all our students, more especially female students, workers, and staff. Abuse of LGBTI staff and students is prevalent on our college and university campuses and must be stopped. We will work closely with universities and colleges to develop policies and programs that will help end the scourge in our institutions. We are concerned as a department about the governance failures we've seen in some of our universities recently. I'm particularly worried about the role of some of our governance structures in creating these failures. We have adopted guidelines for good governance practice for councils of South African universities. These provide a framework for effective university governance and set out the capacity needed by councils. I'm grateful to all those who volunteer their services to serve in our councils, but I'm dismayed at those who see such service as an opportunity to secure tenders and procurement contracts, to gather endless honoraria through unnecessary meetings. This year, we will require our universities to report for the first time on a set of governance indicators. This data will be the starting point for evaluating governance in the sector. Chairperson, honorable members, I am particularly thrilled at the recent appointments of Professor Pakeng at University of Cape Town and Professor Mutwa at Nelson Mandela University as Vice-Chancellors. I'm sure they will blaze a path that many other women leaders in academia will follow in the future. I also welcome the appointment of Professor Marwala at University of Johannesburg. Part of our work includes international engagement. We are chairing BRICS this year and will oversee a number of international activities leading up to the July summit, including hosting the BRICS Think Tanks Council and academic forum meetings. The BRICS education ministers established the BRICS network, through which 60 institutions, 12 from each of the 5 BRICS countries, engage in a variety of educational and research initiatives across a number of thematic areas. The department will be hosting the BRICS Network University Conference and the 6th BRICS Education Ministers meeting in July this year. In closing, Chairperson and honorable members, I wish to stress that fully subsidized bursaries for students from poor and working class backgrounds is a huge opportunity for all South African universities and colleges to be at the forefront of change and empowerment. Our universities and TVET colleges can ensure we overcome the legacy of the past and create a much more equal, empowered, and productive society in the future. Together, we will and can move South Africa forward through the provision of quality and affordable post-school education and training. Honorable Chairperson, I'd like to thank all the staff of all our institutions and entities for their immense contributions. I know I haven't mentioned all of them here today. I'm particularly grateful to those employers who open up their workplaces for training, to those non-governmental organizations and those in the private sector who contribute to our post-school institutions across the country, whether through bursaries, donations and endowments, practical placements, or any practical assistance. I also am very grateful to the welcome I've had and advice from Deputy Minister Buti Manamela, from the staff of the Department of Higher Education and Training, led by Director General Kwebinkundla Ngonde, and to my ministry staff, as well as my family who are up there in the gallery. To all of you, I say thank you, and I commend this budget to the National Assembly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. To take the debate forward, we now call on the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Honorable September.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. Honourable members, Honourable Ministers, Deputy Ministers, all our guests in the gallery, our future, our students, fellow South Africans, good afternoon. Chairperson, allow me to take this opportunity to extend well wishes of peace and harmony during the holy month of Ramadan to all. This budget that we support, of course, as the ANC, must be seen in the context of a long-term development as a country, reliant on training, on education, and a need indeed to be innovative. We need skills in language. We need skills in ethics. We need skills in the arts, of course, in the form of ballet. We need lifelong learning. We need the eradication of the backlog of donated certificates and diplomas. We need equity in South Africa. We need to upskill workers on an ongoing basis as they too wish to further their education and or improve their skills. Working people in South Africa, as Comrade Nelson Mandela reminded us, that knowledge is a weapon in the struggle for emancipation, and as he said, to end poverty. Our ANC-led government can do it, and we will do it. This determination was demonstrated, of course, in his State of the Nation address of 2018, when President Ramaphosa set out the government's intention in relation to the free higher education for the poor. Critical to our understanding of the commitment made, of course, is the link between education and the economy, and the need to invest in education as part of the drive for an inclusive growth and full employment. The call in the NDP reminds us that we need to address funding issues. And therefore, any opposing view to this can be best described, in my view, as neoliberalism that scorn any notion of the public or social good, or even the well-being of the collective. Worse, it can be to accept a refusal of our constitutional responsibility that says we need to progressively realize our goals in education. The ANC will not shy away from asserting the aspirations of all, but in particular the poor, and end white privileges. We need highly educated, but also an informed but critical thinking citizenry in South Africa. This budget, as we have heard, has indeed increased, and indeed it will increase into the outer 2 years of the MTEF also. For the ANC, this must and will mean an improved economic performance in South Africa. The increase in the funds available for higher education and training, of course, has not come without cost. We welcome, as the ANC, the solidarity of many of our departments to accept a reduction in their budget votes, and they have done so willingly, understanding the multiplier effect of a worthwhile investment that ought to be made. True patriotism from them, camaraderie. They place the youth first. We say thank you. We have accepted that there is little in the way of new money available, and that hard choices and some sacrifices will have to be made for the achievement of free education in South Africa, but the journey has begun. Acknowledgement to all that enable this committee today to speak to an expansionist and ambitious program. Yes, we now have to see over billions. This places a big responsibility on the Committee on Higher Education and Training and the department to ensure that the additional funds are spent efficiently and achieve indeed the intended outcomes. It is important to expand access in this way, but at the same time, measures must be taken to expand the availability of affordable accommodation. We must provide meals for students. We must have safe and affordable transport for students, and to expose poorer students to networks and many other advantages of those coming from more affluent households. Minister, you have told us today And we appreciate the efforts that are being made, because we do not want to see any headlines anymore that says that students don't have food, they don't have accommodation, they don't have books. And we agree that your intervention in NSFAS is a necessary one, but we would also call on everyone else to lend a hand, because NSFAS rely on everyone else also to do that. I want to also ask that, Minister, maybe it will be good to find some other premises for NSFAS. It's maybe good for them to come out of the unstable Cape Town with no prospects of students from far-flung areas that can get to NSFAS offices that is far away hidden. In relation to the Tivet College, we think that the reduction, we remain concerned last year, we remain concerned this year also that the reduction in the Tivet College MTF enrollment target from 1.238 million to a cap figure of 710,000 is of great concern, as well as the 5,000 unfunded student accommodation, amongst others. We must address the 3 million young in the needs. There is much to celebrate in higher education and training, notwithstanding the myriad of challenges. These challenges has adequately been articulated in the National Development Plan, and we must address them, and we're on our way. The ANC welcomes the fact that women now outnumber male enrollments in higher education and training. All qualifications across all levels are at 58%. The qualifications on level 8, the honors degrees, the professional degrees like engineering, medical doctors, the list goes on. We say Malibongwe, women have arrived. In trades, in occupation reports indicates that the progress made regarding qualifications achievement has been steadily and it's going in the right direction, with more females also achieving qualifications than males and more black people achieving qualifications. The doors of learning and culture indeed have opened, and Mama Sisulu's dream are fulfilled by us doing what we are doing in relation to women in this country. I too echo the sentiments of congratulating the trio, as I call it, of women at the helm, indeed, at Nelson Mandela University. And of course, we welcome a woman back at UCT and encourage many other institutions, especially at the colleges, to do the same. The MTAS targets for graduates in human and health sciences and many of the others are also met. Indeed, the student demographics are reflective now and starting to become more and more reflective of the South African population. Indeed, NSFAS students now performing better on average than the general population. We agree, Minister, and we are too saddened that many of our female students are experiencing an increase in violence and abuse and even death on campuses and accommodation. We agree that this must stop, and we welcome the efforts already made by the launches that the South African police has had. We too need to tackle discrimination that we still have prevalent in disability in many of our institutions. But of course, we note with pleasure the expansion from 400,000 of some few years ago, this kind of funding. This indeed speaks directly to the ANC's commitment that we need to have a multi-pronged approach to tackle youth unemployment. And this calls for a celebration of the efforts of the late DDG Feroz Patel has made in this area. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Let's continue improvement in underqualified lecturers and the different problems that has been mentioned at the Tivet College areas. We indeed welcome the Center of Specialization that has been mentioned. There can be no celebration of enrollments when the numbers completing and numbers passing the exams drop. We will be watching this indicator closely and expect to see continuing improvement in the medium term. It is unfortunate that the plans to convert some of the 3,000 community-based adult education centers into and around 50 community colleges is being implemented in an environment of limited funding. The committee therefore looked closely at the envisaged plans, and some of it you said, Minister, and raised a number of concerns here. We reiterate the important role that the emerging community colleges must and can play. They must provide young and unemployed people locally accessible quality education and training in areas of employable skills. We must return, honourable members, to what the NDP directs us to do, and that is to understand that to build technical capacity in education requires a political consensus. A national education pact that ideally can be mobilized by the President. The ANC would welcome that this attention to be given, to this, as education must be the winner. Higher education and training is a critical area of investment in our country's future. Much has been achieved and significant progress has been made. This budget will take us there, and as the ANC, we certainly support this. Vote ANC.
Thank you very much. We now call on the Honorable Professor Bosoli to take the debate forward.
Thank you, Chair. I have 6 minutes to match the ANC's 35 minutes to tell you what's really going on. Well, much has changed in higher education this year. We have a new minister, a budget expanded by 57 billion, and a student body which has won major concessions on fees and more. But will this mean the ANC government can deliver a better higher education system than the one we already have? The answer is no. There are 2 reasons for this. The ANC is incompetent and the ANC is conservative. This is the real story of higher education. Jacob Zuma's hasty decision to grant free higher education to all new students from families earning less than $350,000 a year could not be implemented in the time given, basically 1 month. So thousands of naively optimistic students were led to believe that they would be funded, but many have, nearly halfway through the year, not received funding. Some have had to resort to begging for food. Some have been thrown out of their accommodation. Some have never found accommodation and are sleeping in corridors and libraries. Textbooks cannot be bought. Many walk for hours to get to their university or college for lack of transport money. And universities and colleges have closed due to protests at these facts. NSFAS blames the universities and colleges. They blame NSFAS. Students blame both. Our ANC-dominated portfolio committee refuses to address the issue head-on, and the minister asks us to be kind and patient. This is typical of the ANC, an imperialistic attitude towards the ordinary people who are looked after in theory and on a grand scale, but neglected, even treated with disdain when it comes to the daily details of their actual lives. Zuma's decision has added 57 billion to a national budget already reeling from economic stagnation, ineffective tax collection, and ballooning civil service costs. The real costs and inflation rates of higher education are so high, and the planned 70% growth of the sector to 1.7 million university students over the next few years is so massive that there is a generalized fear throughout the sector that the funding of students this generously is unsustainable. But the ANC avoids confronting the long-term consequences of their short-term populist decisions. Minister, what will happen in 4 years' time when the student funding requirements have almost trebled, as we predict? Will more be taken from all the other departments? How will we manage the disappointment of students when maybe they find they will be required to pay towards their own funding after all? Who will handle the apocalypse then? At the same time, the institutions themselves are getting more neglected. The department's administration is barely adequate. The community education and training colleges, designed to teach skills to 500,000 people, remain dysfunctional. The revamp of the dated and ineffective TVET colleges never happens. Failure and dropout rates are astronomical. The top universities today keep their reputations for excellence, and congratulations to them, but they struggle too to cope with inadequate funding, while our best matriculants are starting to leave the country to study elsewhere. The weaker universities can't supply proper accommodation, good teaching, or a stable crime and corruption-free learning environment. While our counterparts in China, India, Ghana, and Kenya have all committed themselves to a 21st century vision for universities, South Africa is held back by a conservative ANC which wants to keep things going more or less as they are, while introducing slight improvements here and there and doing a bit of crisis management where necessary. Yes, the ANC is basically conservative. The ANC also suffers from a serious case of tall poppy syndrome, uncomfortable with achievements which stand out from the norm. And the government has very little idea of how to modernize our stagnant, underfunded system. While China invests multi-billions in advanced research, teaching, and infrastructure, the ANC leaves our institutions floundering, many parochial and stagnant. The much vaunted fourth industrial revolution is going to leave us standing, as we barely manage the first and second and tiptoe towards the third. South Africa's higher education may soon become a lost cause. Urgent change is needed, and the ANC cannot provide it. The DA can. We believe in modernization, in academic excellence, in institutional differentiation, and in responsible and reliable administration. We will not leave students in the dark as to what is happening to them. And we will not allow our institutions to wallow in mediocrity and crime-ridden environments. We want our higher education system to move rapidly into the 21st century, and we know how to make that happen. The ANC does not. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Pozoli. Isikhulumi esilandelayo ngumhlonishwa uMam Khaliphi.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Unfortunately, Minister, we are not going to support this budget vote as EFF. And I will tell you the reason why, Minister. You must listen carefully, ANC. The struggle for free, decolonized, quality socialist education in our lifetime continues. And while there have been small victories along the way, the final victory has not been realized. I stand here, Minister, to represent the fees must fall students who were brutalized by the state, and many were arrested and expelled from the institutions of higher learning. I'm speaking on behalf of Kaya Tsekeshe, who is facing an 8-year jail sentence simply because he fought for free education for all, something government claims to support, but in reality does not. I'm standing here, Minister, representing a voiceless fee must fall student, Bonkosi Education Kanyile, a DU2 student, who is still attending 2 court cases at Durban High Court, who spent his Christmas Day in prison and was denied bail and was treated like a criminal who have not killed anyone until the Constitutional Court granted him a bail of 250 rand. Thanks to the EFF, because we care about our young leaders. Minister, I'm standing here representing a fees must fall, Lama Hannes, who is facing a house arrest of 2 years. Minister, I'm speaking here on behalf of Mangaliso Sambo, and as well as the EFF Student Command Treasurer of KZN. Both are expelled from the institution because they are fighting for free education. They are fighting for free education. And you, ANC, you are arresting our people. Minister, I'm standing here speaking on behalf of female students who are raped and killed in the campuses. You must ask why. Why are you quiet now? Minister, what kind of a democratic government that arrests students? What kind of a democratic government are you serving? Minister, what kind of a government that does not protect a girl child who left her home in searching of a better life by obtaining education? What kind of a government is that? Is a failed government. Minister, to you, what kind of a mother who does not feel pain when young and future leaders are prevented in obtaining education? I'm asking you specifically. Instead, are arrested and treated as criminals. Minister, how long must we absorb this pain of our children being arrested and killed in searching for education? We strongly call on you, Minister, to intervene to these fees must fall cases and free these young leaders in order for them to continue with their dreams of studies and become successful in their lives. We are making this call to you as a mother. I think you are going to heed our call as a mother. When students made the clarion call for free education, it was free education for all, and not just for first years whose parent combined income is less than 350,000 per year. What happens when your parent earns 360,000 and have 5 siblings? What happened? Give us logic, Minister. 1 year of university can cost up to 100,000 if you include everything. Anybody who has studied at any institution of higher learning will tell you, Minister, that the fees are often only half the problem when it comes to financing the studies. You have to eat, Minister, but how are you going to eat when the NSFAS food allowance only arrives in May, 5 months later? You need study materials, Minister, and textbooks, surely you know that. But how can you afford this when your parents have no money and this government does not produce any employment in this country? Tell me, Minister, you need a place to sleep, but where must you sleep if there's no accommodation, Minister? Institutions of higher learning in this country are facing an accommodation crisis. Every year, we have students squatting in 5 or more to a single room. You have students sleeping in studying areas for an entire year. We have students who literally sleep in the road, Minister. You know for a fact. Government
Thank
and
you very much,
institutions-
Honorable Mkalipi. Unfortunately, your time is
No,
up.
it's 4 minutes. I have 5 minutes.
Once it turns red, it means your minutes are done.
But I'm lecturing you.
Thank
here,
you very
Minister.
much. Your
Minister,
time has expired. I'm
you
going
must
to.
you must please
Honourable
attend
member.
to what we are asking you to
Thank you.
attend if you
All
want
right.
to change the lives of poor people in this
Thank you.
country. I thank you.
Die volgende spreker is achtbare lid Esther Hazen van die IFP.
Thank you, Chair. Minister. Chair, I'm doing this debate on behalf of the Honourable Honourable Buthelezi and Nkosi Buthelezi, who could not be here. Chair, higher education in South Africa has been a very topical issue in the recent years gone past. Suffice to say that after the 2018 State of the Nation address by the Honourable President Ramaphosa, the fees must fall narrative has died down, to say the least. However, the reality is that as a country, South Africa produced too little, yet we consume too much. And while our financial and societal woes are inextricably linked to tragic political and exploitative economic history, the harsh reality is that our current political leadership is perpetuating this state of affairs. The truth of the matter is that the government has failed to provide quality education at secondary level, and under false hope, by focusing public attention to disparate concepts of job creation, free tertiary education, the fourth industrial revolution, and the national minimum wage. Every year, millions of school leavers enter the job market with almost no prospect of finding meaningful employment. The education that is provided as the pass rate is so substandard that the topic of tertiary education is almost an ancillary one. The budget allocation increases were expected as to make room for implementation of the free higher education, which is all well and good, but if successful, it begs the question how is the working domain going to accommodate all the new graduates? The fact remains that the majority of students graduating from institutions will be stepping into a workplace that is virtually not ready to accommodate them. A majority of them will be unemployable due to the facts relating to critical skills necessary for the development of the economy not being prioritized in education. School leavers are functionally enumerate and illiterate, as illustrated by the absence of maths in their curricula, where language comprehension, even in the mother tongue, is poor. Career guidance should be playing a significant role in grooming of young professionals, and perhaps the department ought to look at working closely with the Department of Basic Education in order to facilitate this in the secondary levels of education. The IFP support the budget. Thank you.
Dank u, achtbare lid. Volgens is achtbare lid Wolmarans.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister of Higher Education and Training, Deputy Minister, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen. Honorable Chairperson, just 2 weeks into office, the ANC-led Minister of Higher Education, after hearing the calls from students at different universities, sent the HOD to the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal. That's the heart of a caring mother. The ANC rises in support of Budget 15 of Higher Education and Training, and in celebrating the centenary of our fallen icon, President Nelson Mandela, we are reminded of his staggering commitment to education when he addressed the Mindset launch in July 2003, where he asserted that education is the most powerful weapon we can use to change the world. This assertion remains true and valid today for the ANC and the ANC-led government. The vision of accelerating access to tertiary and further education was originally articulated in the Freedom Charter and is yet to gain full traction. We, however, will continue to seek solutions to specific and identified challenges. The NDP identifies these challenges in the following: that funding for higher education as a proportion of GDP has declined marginally over the last few years, from 0.76 in 2000 to 0.69 in 2009. This is our honest assessment, and it is informed by our 2030 vision template, which envisages a strong foundation spanning from early childhood development, basic education, and tertiary and further education. On access to tertiary and further education, the National Development Plan enjoins the state to enroll 1.6 million students in public higher education institutions by 2013. And this budget vote for the Department of Higher Education and Training, with the current trend, the target is on track and it will be met. The ANC-led government outlined a 57 billion additional funding on higher education and training in this year's budget speech. We wish to record before this House that the first-year students with a family income below 350, as alluded by the Minister, were funded for the full cost of study without hiccups or much hiccups in 2018 academic year, save for our teething problems. Returning NSFAS students at university will have their loans for 2018 onwards converted to bursaries. This is the ANC-led government. The TVET sector enrollment have expanded from 2019 to 2014. University enrollment increased by 8.5% during this period, with the TVET colleges doubling. In moving towards achieving the NDP 2014, additional funding of 2.5 billion for bursaries to fund children from poor and working class families entering TVET colleges was allocated. This fund increment will result in 875 TVET students receiving bursaries to cover their tuition and learning materials, translating into 90% of TVET college students benefiting from these increased allocations. This will greatly assist the implementation of free higher education, especially for qualifying students. This is in line with the 2014 National Election Manifesto, which commits intensifying efforts to support the needs of poor students, including adequate student funding and preparation for study. The 2014 National Election Manifesto further committed to continuing to improve governance and administrative TVET colleges and adopt quality assurance measures, especially relating to the curriculum and training. Policies such as TVET college, finance management, administration management of student admissions, monitoring and evaluation of TVET colleges, teaching and learning support plans, TVET college lecture developments were developed and they were approved. The National Certificate Vocational NCV, aimed at addressing the economic skills demand, is currently under review to address the critique, and it is not adequate.
Your time has now expired.
With such, the ANC supports the vote.
We thank you. The Honorable Professor Kubisa, you take the debate forward.
House Chairperson, thank you very much. Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister, Honorable Ministers, Deputy Ministers, Honorable Members, thank you very much, our guests in the gallery. Our country has a responsibility to ensure that all our children get to school and eventually acquire university or TVET education in order for them to get into the job market or acquire the necessary skills and competencies that will allow them to create their own jobs and their own businesses. And of course, make a contribution to economic growth and also alleviate poverty. This is a massive task. Honorable Chairperson, all thriving democracies invest greatly in quality education. We need a well-planned, well-integrated, well-coordinated, effective, efficient, and quality education system. In other words, Minister, it doesn't begin at a higher education level. It begins with basic education. The foundations must be correct. And we know that our country has been ranked as being down in the ladder with regard to maths literacy. And that should be a challenge to us, because it says to us the product we're bringing to higher education is not well prepared, because there should be that coordination between higher education and training and basic education. It begins from there. And this coordination must be then in universities, TVET colleges, community colleges, our CETAs must be correct, and all other RPL institutions, well coordinated in order to service our nation. We need to produce productive, innovative, competent, and entrepreneurial citizens. The NFP supports the budget and welcome the introduction of higher education. However, Minister, the announcement and the introduction need to be well managed. That is why there continues to be disruptions in universities, because our students still complain that there are still many issues that have not been addressed. This is coupled with the challenges of NSFAS and student accommodation. That says to us, Honorable Chairperson, we still have a long way to go to address the challenges of the past and bring about equitable, quality, free higher education. But the introduction is welcome. The NFP wants to convey our condolences to the family of Zolile Kumalo, who was gunned down at a residence, the MUT student. The department working with higher education institutions should seriously look into the matter of student accommodation. Their safety and security is of paramount importance. The issue of student transport is also very crucial. The NFP maintains that this matter is important because we have many of our children who sleep along the streets and squat in shacks due to the shortage of accommodation. And as a result, they become victims of harassment, sexual harassment, and rape. This must be attended to, Honorable Minister. We also note that 10.7 billion has been given to TVET education. And we are saying as the NFP, this is not enough, considering the fact that Program 4 is very important, and a lot of infrastructure in TVET education still needs to be maintained. The equipment needs to be modernized, and as we consider that it's only 4 billion that is getting into these matters, because 6.2 billion getting into the compensation of the employees. Again, the question of qualified lecturers and relevant TVET curricula must be mentioned in dealing with this budget. TVET colleges still need an additional 5,000 beds to address the issue of accommodation so that our children do not sleep along the streets. And of course, the NFP shares the concern of the Portfolio Committee on saying that there is no budget for the headcount in TVET colleges.
Time has expired.
Thank you very much. We support the budget. Thank you.
Ra leboga. Motlatsa tona mohlomphehi Manamela sebaka ke sa gago.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson, Minister of Higher Education and Training, Ms. Naledi Pandor, Ministers and Deputy Ministers, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education and members of the Portfolio Committee, Director General and staff of the Department of Higher Education, and all the entities and institutions under our department. Last year, the gruesome murder of Karabo Mokoena, a student at the University of Johannesburg, enraged our nation in 2017. The grim details of a murder splashed across our television screen and social media, infuriating us and shocking our consciences. But we are once again shaken by the murder of Zolile Khumalo, a student at MUT. Her murder accused, Thabani Mzolo, must face the full wrath of the law. Justice must prevail. Research by the Higher Education AIDS program indicates that 10% of the total reported cases of rape across the country were from university students. This figure will likely increase if you take into account TVET colleges. A further 62% of students surveyed felt that female students would be sexually harassed on campus. An alarming 55% of male students think that sexual violence does not include forcing sex with someone you know. The statistics are frightening. We're not revealing these statistics to shock the nation, but we have to confront this reality. Violence against women is a problem that must be rooted out within higher education and training. It is also a societal problem that calls all of us into action. Our quest is to make our campuses safer, and this we invite all political parties and students' organizations on campuses to engage with us into this action. We will launch in the year the grievous bodily, the gender-based violence policy and strategy framework for the higher education sector in August 2018. This sectoral policy that will open a wide range of programs to mitigate this problem. Together with Higher Education AIDS and the Karabo Mokoena Foundation, we will be launching a campaign in June focusing on violence against women and other safety issues on campus. We hope that through this campaign, we will excite young people and students to take action, and I call on all student leaders to join us in this regard. Minister Pandor has spoken extensively about the policy and implementation of fee-free higher education for the poor and working class. This policy decision must be viewed within the historical struggles waged by students and communities for free education. As a result of the global economic crisis of 2018 and its impact on social expenditure, there was a push for caution on fee-free higher education. Government has indeed taken a correct decision to make this critical investment for the present and the future generation. We are seeing the effects of mobilizing young people to make education fashionable. Fee-free higher education for the poor and working class will have dramatic impact on our future. It will change individuals' lives, families, and communities. The investment that government is making in higher education is not an indication for the private sector to relax and take its foot off the pedal. Rather, we want the private sector to play an even bigger role, and so we call upon the private sector to match government's contribution to higher education and training. We will and shall benefit from this investment. Honorable Bozoli came here with a suitcase of nightmares, indicating something that, or things that are contrary to the truth. Firstly, the decision for fee-free higher education is not a decision of an individual. It is a decision of the ANC government. It is a decision which we are committed to implement through and through. And you can have your own hatred and issues with the former president, but this is a policy which we are willing to take to the end. Now, as part of your suitcase of nightmares, you indicate a litany of things which are contrary to what's happening on the ground. Yes, there were challenges with regards to the implementation of the fee-free higher education policy, but in the overall, we believe that this policy and its implementation has been a success. And just one indicator is the fact that today, as we speak, more than 270,000 students who ordinarily would not have had access to education can today go to school. Yes, some of them, because of the challenges the NSFAS faced and the communication with universities and with TVET colleges, may not have received their allowances and all of that, but in the overall, we believe that the implementation of this policy has been a success. And I think generally the response from the opposition parties indicates a hodgepodge of uncoordinated responses. On the one hand, the DA in its dreamland and nightmare believes that there is nothing happening, but in reality, we believe that progress has been made. But on the other hand, the EFF's intervention is just far from also the reality. In the first instance, we have ensured that those students who have not committed any particular crimes during the protest, that those students are released and that nothing has been pursued against all those students. But I think that we need to remember that responsible student protest must be promoted. We cannot promote student leaders or students activists who want to behave as gangsters, and yet you want us to protect those. Today, as we speak, at the University of Johannesburg, a laboratory worth 2.5 billion rand was burnt down, and yet you say that we should ignore that. At the University of Fort Hare, infrastructure was brought down by fire, and you say that something that was spent with public money, that we need to ignore, that resources which should have gone to the education of these children should, as you say, that we need to ignore those. Those are not the things that we're going to. And we believe that in the case of all those students that you've indicated, that the law should take its course. If they're innocent, if nobody else have been violated and all of that in the course of all of these things, then there's no reason to worry. We believe that there has to be fairness, there has to be justice, and if action is not taken, therefore, no responsibility will be taken by those student leaders. A critical part of our post-school education and training system is our TVET colleges. The bursary allocation for TVET colleges has increased from 2.4 billion in 2017 to 5.164 billion in 2018, representing a 112% allocation increasing. Honorable Oli says we stole this from young children. Are there old children that you know? Do you know any old children? I think we need to enroll you in one of our higher education institutions. This budget is going to help you so that you don't talk about old children and all of that. We've had your call for better quality TVET programs, and we're strengthening both program quality and college performance. TVET colleges have presented their performance reports with a comparison of the 2016 and 2017 performance focusing on poor performing subjects. A strategy is being developed to address the nationally identified poor performing subject. The clear roles of academic boards, academic managers, campus managers, and lecturers will be defined in college improvement and actions plan. Our DHET regional officials are supporting TVET colleges to implement the teaching and learning improvement plan. We want to see more stable, functional, better government TVET colleges that offer higher quality programs. I don't have the time, Honorable Member from the EFF, and the crayons to draw it for you so that you understand. Over the last 27 years, the NSFAS and its predecessors assisted more than 3 million students, investing a staggering amount of over 60 billion in the process. So the next time that you ask, what has this government done? Think about the many graduates out there who are the product of the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. The Pioneers program will inspire our current generation to graduate and make a success of their careers. I'm delighted that 3 pioneers of this program could be here today and are seated in the gallery. Ms. Veronica Mutlotsi from Soshanguve, who is currently the CEO of Smart Home Connect Pty Ltd. Mr. Aaron Muloisi from Khadikhale in Limpopo, whom you have seen on television as a presenter of Shift and Take 5, and Mr. Laduma Ngokolo from Port Elizabeth, who is an accomplished fashion designer and the owner of Makosa by Laduma Clothing Brand. They are here with us in the gallery. Where are they? These are NSFAS funded graduates. So watch out the space for hashtag I'm a pioneer. Recently, we saw young people graduate from institutions all across our country. Their elation was captured on hashtag Celebrate Graduate and other social media platforms. They came in their finest fashion, cloaked with their graduation gowns. And congratulations to Katleho Masuha, Krisantha Palan, Zingisa Sotrikwa, Mama Shobate Nuku, Monene Ramadimecha, Lindelwa, Mhlungula, and many others who graduated in 2018. Your graduation did not come easy. It is a sign of hard work and progress. A special congratulations to the 72-year-old Dr. Delphine Marais from the University of Fort Hare, who showed us that you are never too old to learn. We will indeed learn from her. Our graduates have truly inspired those who are studying and showed that there is no shortcut to success. They've made the ultimate fashion statement by making education fashionable. And as one of the graduates of one of our universities, the University of Fort Hare, Nelson Mandela said, education is the ultimate equalizer. Indeed, it is good to be a graduate. Honorable Chairperson, I join the Minister in presenting the 2018-2019 budget, Vote 15, of the Department of Higher Education and Training. Thank you.
The next speaker is the Honorable Mama Cheke from the UDM.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Ministers, Honorable Members, our guests at the gallery, the hurdle of providing free fee education at universities, for the most part, has been resolved, and we believe it is for the better of the country. We look at it as an investment in the people and capacity of this country. We are very pleased. Through education, many of the problems that the country faces can be solved, such as violence against women and equality. These 2 issues are very close to my heart, and I find it disturbing that students, especially women, are not safe on university grounds. The attack on Promise Masoga, where she was attacked and almost raped at the Tshwane University of Technology. We will sing the same song of the murder of Zolile Kumalo at the Mangosuthu University of Technology's residence, paints a picture of a dire need for security on university campuses across South Africa. I highlight these 2 most recent attacks as there is clearly a need for improved security on university campuses. These 2 vicious attacks on human lives, where one became fatal, is not isolated from the many other crimes that occur on university grounds and residences. It is my belief that many of the security concerns that occur in university towns and properties are rooted in the ability to access the academic environment safely. Students are often required to put in a lot of after-hours work to excel, and it is a reasonable expectation of them. However, government needs to ensure that the environment is safe for them to work late hours of the night. For example, a student who is unable to find reasonable accommodation provided by the university or close to the university may be forced to find accommodation in villages or townships that surround the university. This poses serious security vulnerabilities, as students will be open to attack if they walk alone with laptops in darkened streets of a township or a village. Chairperson, this occurrence is also due to the great lack of infrastructure and the much needed high-speed trains and bus networks to connect all areas. South Africa cannot continue to be without this much needed infrastructure that will enable safe travel for university students as well as other people. To address the safety concerns, the UDM suggests the following. All universities should receive an on-site South African Police Service branch to deal with student issues such as, but not limited to, crime, affidavits, and on-site law and order. The department to make provisions of shuttles to take students to places in which the buses and taxi services do not reach or do not work at after hours. And legislation that grants that all students of recognized tertiary education centers receive preferential rates when traveling on local networks, buses, taxis, and trains. And lastly, Chairperson, legislation to protect against the greed of property owners charging exorbitant rentals in areas that are being used to house students of university towns or universities. If property owners are leasing properties to gain income from students, then they must be subject to a rent cap in order to make sure that they do not place added stress on the students to find the high rent fees that are currently being charged. We support the budget. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker is Honorable Kunu.
Thank you, Chairperson. Protocol is observed. I'm speaking on expanding access and success in the post-school education and training system. Section 29, subsection 1B of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa states that everyone has the right to further education, which the state, through reasonable measures, must make progressively available and accessible. Notwithstanding the competing social needs and priorities, the ANC-led government has ensured that this constitutional right is progressively attainable and the educational playing field is leveled for all. The high cost of financing university education was making it difficult for the majority of young people with academic merits to access education, thus making university education a privilege than a right. Funding allocation to support student financial aid has increased from 21 million in 1991 during TEFSA time to 23.7 billion in 2018-19, thus providing more access to students coming from humble families. The ANC has reaffirmed its 2012 Mangaung resolution to implement fee-free higher education for the poor, contrary to the narrative created by some in this House, harvesting where they did not plow. Indeed, the ANC is implementing its own policy. DHET grant allocation to NSFAS will grow over the MTF period to 30.8 billion and 35.3 billion in 2019-20 and 2020 to 2021, respectively. This will cater for more students as the policy is progressively phased in. To implement such policy would require improved NSFAS capacity, and as a result, an additional 105 million over the MTF period has been allocated for this purpose. We also welcome government's commitment to address the underfunding of universities through increased spending on universities as a percentage of GDP. While we addressed the funding challenges, we are, however, still concerned about the inadequate numbers of postgraduate students to grow our knowledge economy. Equally, numbers of women and Black South African students at postgraduate level is inadequate. We acknowledge, though, the contribution made by NRF to fund postgraduate students. However, its capacity is limited. The NTP calls for the production of more than 100 doctoral graduates per million per year by 2030 To attain this number, we require a healthy postgraduate pipeline to enable the country to be a leading innovator. We need to look at ways for funding postgraduate students in order to attract and retain them. The university sector has made a lot of strides towards the attainment of 2014-2019 MTSF graduate targets in engineering sciences, human and animal health sciences, physical and natural sciences, and initial teacher education, to mention but a few. We're also cognizant of the fact that fee-free higher education alone will not address the challenges that cause underperformance and dropout of students. Through our oversight visit to universities, we found that students took longer to complete their qualification. It is a small percentage of students who complete their qualifications in regulated time. Therefore, student support mechanisms at institutions for higher education should be strengthened to address some of psychosocial factors that contribute to underperformance and dropout. Honorable Chairperson, the NDP envisaged by 2030, South Africans should have access to education and training of the highest quality. We have considered the APP of CHE and welcome the plans to continue its focus on improving and maintaining quality of program offerings. We have seen recent years some universities lost accreditation in programs like Bachelor of Social Work and Bachelor of Laws after the CHE conducted program evaluation. We welcome these outcomes. We cannot afford to subject our students to poor program offerings. We also are very concerned about the safety and security of our institutions. We support the intervention by SAPS and also what has been addressed by the Deputy Minister, what they will be launching in August. We urge all communities to support these programs.
Honorable Member, your time has expired.
Honorable Pozzoli, I know we were just overwhelmed by the good initiatives in the PSEC sector. It's understandable. The ANC supports the budget vote. Thank you.
I now call upon Honorable Groenewald.
Honorable Chair, I want to say that I welcome the Honorable Minister saying that there will be preconditions when it comes to the National Students Financial Assistance Scheme. I do believe that one of those preconditions that a student must pass the academic year before they can receive another year's financial assistance. I think that's the least the taxpayers of South Africa is expecting, and she's nodding her head, so we welcome that. Agbare voorsitter, ek wil praat oor Afrikaans op ons universiteite. Die Jakes Gerwel verslag van 2002 het reeds baie duidelik uitgespel dat ons behoort in Suid-Afrika minstens een universiteit in die noorde en een universiteit in die suide te hê wat Afrikaans is, of dan minstens oorwegend Afrikaans. Tans het Suid-Afrika ongeveer 26 universiteite met 38 kampusse en die aanslag teen Afrikaans, ten spyte daarvan dat die grondwet in artikel 29 baie duidelik stel dat Afrikaans sprekendes die reg het op onderwys in hulle moedertaal, word die aanslag deur die regering en wil ek eintlik ook sê, die meelopers wat hulle self fisiekanseliers noem van sommige universiteite om Afrikaans te wurg. Kom ek vat byvoorbeeld die Noordwes Universiteit met sy PUK kampus. Wat?
On a point of order. Yes. The translation, we cannot understand what the honorable member is saying. We don't know if he's ordering a pizza or what.
Okay. Honorable Member, someone is checking what the problem is. You may proceed.
Dankie, achtbare voorzitter. Let me say to the honourable member, I'm not going to be wrangled for Afrikaans on that one. So, unfortunate. Wat ek wil sê is dat die aanslag is teen Afrikaans. En as ek terug kan kom na die Noordwes Universiteit op sy Potchefstroom kampus, die blote feit dat daar voorsiening gemaak word ook vir taaldienste, is selfs dit nie eers aanvaarbaar nie. Hy bestaan uit 3 kampusse, waar die ander kampusse heeltemal Engels is. En so 'n paar weke gelede, toe was daar 'n oop dag waar ouers die universiteit kon besoek het. En ek wil dit op rekord stel vandag, dat die rektor van die Potchefstroom kampus, professor Fika, wat dan daar is, sê vir die ouers, maar hulle gaan veeltaligheid bevorder. Maar as die ouers kom by die regsfakulteit, dan sê die dekaan van die fakulteit, van 2020 sal al die klasse net in Engels wees. Nou dit is in die een kant 'n misleiding vir die ouers, en aan die ander kant is dit hoe die hoër funksie van Afrikaans stadig gewurg word. En ek weet, daar's baie wat sê, ja, maar die studente verkies dit. Ja, as jy weet dat studente moet verder studeer en hulle eerder in Engels voorberei, dan sal hulle daai keuse doen. Maar gee vir hulle die keuse van Afrikaans. En ek doen 'n beroep op die achtbare minister. Gee aandag aan daardie universiteite wat minstens 'n kampus kan hê vir oorwegend Afrikaans. En die felheid en die vyhandigheid wat geopenbaar word teen Afrikaans op universiteite is ongrondwetlik, en as die minister uitsprake maak om te sê bevorder dit, dan glo ek sal Afrikaans bevorder word. Ek dank u.
Baie dankie, honorable member. I now call upon Honorable Killian.
House Chair, I just want to say good day to everybody in the House, and especially the guest and the Minister. And in fact, Honourable Groenewald has really derailed me almost. But let me just start where I wanted to begin. Ek wil vandag my totale misnoë uitspreek met die kwetsende aksies van AfriForum en ander regsradikale individue en instansies. Kwansuis namens Afrikaanssprekendes. Callie Kriel en Ernst Roots, julle wat met die Ku Klux Klan elemente in die FSA saamspan teen ons demokratiese bestel, julle praat nie namens my en ander progressiewe Afrikaanssprekendes nie. Maar die interessante ding, voorsitter, is die daverende stilte uit die DA, wat veelzeggend is.
Voorsitter, ek praat nie namens AfriForum of Solidariteit nie, maar ek wil vir die achtbare spreker vra. Is sy seker dat hulle met die Ku Klux Klan wel 'n vergadering gehad het, want ek dink sy lieg vir die parlement.
Honorable Chair.
Jy jok.
Honorable Chair.
That is not out of order.
Honorable Chair, on a point of order, Rule 92. The Honorable Member Groenewald has just said the Honorable Member is lying. Het gesê jy jok. It means you are lying.
Okay.
That's hetzelfde.
Honorable Chair,
Okay.
I think this is very unfair to us who are not African-speaking people. We can't follow the debate. We can't even hear if another member is calling another member a liar. So what are we here for? We raise a point of order to say we don't have translation. And then please attend to it. We want to follow what is happening between these two people who are speaking Afrikaans here.
Honorable Member, it's attended to.
Voorsitter, ek hoop ek word nie benadeel in terme van
Chair,
tyd
I have
nie.
raised a point of order.
Honorable Member Groenewald. You do admit that you were saying she is lying.
Agbare Speaker, ek sal
Can you withdraw, please?
ek sal dit terugtrek om te sê sy jok, maar ek wil vir haar sê sy praat 'n onwaarheid en sy weet dit.
Can you withdraw, please?
Honorable Chair, it can't be conditional. Honorable Chairperson, he's qualifying his behavior by doing that. He must withdraw unconditionally.
Honorable Member Groenewald, can you withdraw unconditionally, please?
Agbare Honorable Chair, let me say it in English. I want your guidance in this. If an honorable member stands at the podium and does not tell the truth, am I then to keep quiet and not say that the honorable member is not telling the truth? Is that unparliamentary? Because if that is so...
Honorable Member, it's not you who must say that. May you withdraw, please?
Say again?
Withdraw.
Withdraw what? I did withdraw. I withdrew and
You
said
did
I withdraw
not.
that I said she's telling a lie. What must I then withdraw?
What do you mean by telling a lie? You must withdraw. You must withdraw telling a lie.
I did withdraw, Chairperson, and then I said she's not talking the truth. It's as simple as that.
Honorable Groenewald, don't play with us. Withdraw your comment, please.
I withdraw the words of lie. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Dankie voorsitter. Voorsitter, agbare Groenewald het duidelik nie gehoor wat ek sê nie, maar ek sal nie weer daarna toe gaan nie, want ek het nie gesê met die Ku Klux Klan nie, ek het gesê met Ku Klux Klan elemente. Maar is interessant dat agbare Groenewald so sensitief is. That is very interesting, and what is more, the silence from the DA to my left is equally interesting. Why don't they condemn it? Why are they so quiet? I will tell you what I believe is the problem. They have clandestine relationships with AfriForum. And they can't dare.
Point of order.
Honorable Member, what is your point of order?
If the Honourable Member would like the DA to intervene, we're happy to do it, but it's going to drown out this drivel that we're having to listen to this afternoon.
That is not a point of order. Honorable Member, may proceed.
Point of order, Chair. Chair, because now we don't follow the debate, why can't you just translate to us? Because we don't know what is the matter now between these two honorable members. It seems as if you do understand what is going on here. Please, get someone who understands what is going on here. For us who does not speak Afrikaans,
Honorable Member, you may proceed.
It is very interesting indeed. I believe I
Chair,
know the
but
reason
you can't proceed
for
without
the silence.
ruling on the
I will
translator.
speak exclusively English from now on.
Member, I'm not talking to you with due respect.
She is speaking English
Chair,
now.
Chair, I'm talking to you. Please address us in terms of the rules of Parliament. Because we're supposed to have a translator. What is happening? She will proceed in English, but it's too late. I don't know what they were fighting with Honorable Groenewald.
Honorable Chair.
Honorable Groenewald, please.
No,
sit down.
no,
May
what I
you
want to
please
say.
sit down?
No, point of order, Chairperson.
I did not acknowledge you.
No,
May
the
you please
honourable
sit
member
down?
is correct. She's correct.
Sit down.
Why don't we have translation services? This is Parliament.
Sit down,
We have
Honourable
11
Groenewald.
official languages and translators. Please ensure that they work.
Sit down. It's attended to. I'm still maintaining saying that it's attended to. Honorable Member, may you proceed?
Chairperson, I think I know why the DA is so quiet. I think they cannot dare to criticize AfriForum because they're scared of the white electorate. They cannot stand up for what is right. Or alternatively, they're busy with the next scheme to get rid of Auntie Pat. Auntie Pat is giving them a run for their money. Government's
Point of
rolling
order.
out of a fully...
Yes, Honourable Member.
Point of order, House Chairperson. It's a point of order about irrelevance and repetition. This is a debate on higher education. It's not in the DA.
That is not a point
But if
of
she wants to
order.
talk about not being able to get rid of people, perhaps she wants to tell us what's happening to Supra and all his allies in the Northwest
That is
Province.
not a point
that your
of
president
order.
had to abuse government to get out of office. To solve a party
Honourable
problem,
Member.
you're abusing government position.
Honourable Member, may you proceed, please?
You know, Honourable Chair, Honourable Steenhuisen is repeatedly getting away with transgressing the rules of this National Assembly by raising irrelevant issues in terms of points of order. But be that as it may, government's rolling out of
On a point
fully...
of order, Chairperson. On a point of order.
Yes.
Chairperson, in
What
terms
is
of
the
rule-
point of order? Honourable members, please.
Chairperson, in terms of Rule 68, you must rule in terms of relevance and repetition. The honourable member at the podium is not relevant to this budget vote. You must rule. You cannot ignore it. You're making a circus of this House. Get control of this House.
Okay, Honourable Member, I have to check the concert.
Honourable Chair.
Concert.
Honourable Chairperson.
I have to check the answer.
Honourable
May you
Chair.
proceed, Honourable Member?
Honourable Chair, on a point of
Chairperson.
order, please.
Who's now interrupting? Chairperson, the rolling out of fully subsidized free higher education for poor and working class families
Honourable
must be
members.
applauded. This will no doubt create hope for thousands of academic achievers from deprived backgrounds. Honourable Zoli's criticism of the budget shift to DHET to support deserving students from poor black families is therefore, quite frankly, completely incomprehensible. But perhaps it speaks of the DA's hypocrisy and double talk. They couldn't care about people from poor backgrounds, especially poor black people. Chairperson, the need for urgent intervention to upskill the nation is right now. Unemployed out of youth makes up alarming statistics in South Africa. The latest Statistics South Africa report, released a day ago, indicated that 3.3 million young people between the ages of 15 to 24 and a further 4.6 million between ages 24 and 35 are classified as needs, not in education, employment, or training. And more than 90% of them are black. Young people born in the early 90s are often called the born frees, but that is a misnomer. A majority of our young black South Africans are still trapped in intergenerational poverty and inequality. They are not free. Despite significant progress made during the past 24 years, race, class, and gender inequalities continue to shape young people's lives. The playing field is far from level. But let us not forget where we come from. And maybe this could help Honourable Maimane explain when he said white privilege, he triggered the anger of young white denialists in his caucus. Here is evidence. Just look at the statistics of the 1996 census. At that stage, educational attainment figures show that the majority of white youth then had a minimum of 12 years of education compared to only 6 years for black South Africans, and that through Bantu education.
Honourable Chairperson.
It also shows that at that time, the majority of young white adults.
Chairperson, can the honourable member not take a question? Was this not created in the NP, which she was, the situation she's talking about, created by the NP, the party which she represented? She should not take a responsibility for it.
Member.
The fact is that the majority of white adults had matriculated or were enrolled in higher education institutions, but only 18% of blacks and only 24% of coloured youth had similar levels of education. You know, Honourable Chairperson,
Honourable Member, your time has expired. Honourable members, the next speaker is Honourable Matisha.
Raul is a minister. Chairperson, our constitution is clear. Education is a constitutional right. Education is also the best means to break the chains of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. And it is of vital importance if we are to achieve growth and development. However, Chairperson, as Professor Johnson has pointed out, and I agree, our universities are growingly vulnerable and are under threat as a consequence of the socio-economic and political crisis we face, which is founded in the bad and corrupted governance and unethical political leadership of the ruling party. Now, some of these problems are that financially our universities are vulnerable because government grant funding to universities has been decreasing whilst the number of students has been increasing. Hence, many institutions of higher learning refuse to admit students today. Secondly, free higher education means that the fees of students are subsidized and not that universities are obtaining more much needed capital and operational funding. And academically, our universities are vulnerable because basic education is producing, permit me to say, unsuitable. Permit me to say that, Minister, for university level studies. Why? Because they are not ready when they pass grade 12. Each and every time, every year, what government will do, more and more children are passing. Why? Because unlike in the past, when we had to have 50% plus, now they go down and down every year. And I'm very happy the Deputy Minister of Basic Education agrees with me. They talk about 33%. Now, there is growing loss of academic staff who find conditions on our campuses untenable. That's a major problem. And politically, our universities are losing out in the contestation of growing needs and dwindling financial resources. Universities are vulnerable in the face of institutionalization of violence on campuses and in the face of the wide ending of their independence and autonomy by government. That's a major problem that we're faced with. And globally, our top universities, such as UCT, VETS, are losing their international standing as places of academic and research excellence. And so, Madam Minister, we ask, what assurances can you give us that our universities won't, like elsewhere in Africa, post-liberation, ultimately collapse? Chairperson, whilst as COPE we fully support free higher education, we believe that we must, as a nation, work to be in a position where all public education can be provided
Honourable Member,
free,
your time has
but
expired.
in a sustainable manner. Unilaterally
Your time
implementing
has
free
expired.
higher education when our financial resources are strained,
Honorable
what we
Matisha.
had, the president, the past
Honorable Matisha.
pseudo-president,
Honorable Matisha.
Zuma, made
Honorable Matisha.
the announcement on the 16th of
Honorable
December
Matisha.
that you'll have this, whereas
Honorable
there
Matisha.
are very serious problems. I am not done. There are very
Yeah.
many points. I therefore shall give you this.
Honorable van der Westhuizen.
Honorable Chairperson, Minister, members, just imagine the excitement of a poor student on hearing about the 2.6 billion voted as additional financial aid to allow him or her to study at one of our public TVET colleges. And that this will also cover accommodation, meals, study material, etc. But on inquiring, our student learns that many college residences have been closed. Colleges require about twice the 21,000 rand, which your department set as a livable amount for a year's accommodation and meals. And due to non-payment in the past, private landlords in the vicinity of the campus are no longer willing to provide accommodation for students. At the campus I visited last year, fellow students kindly offered to assist and allowed such students to join them in the rundown house that the CETA donated to the college. Here you are made to sleep on the floor or to share a bed with a fellow student. You share 2 dirty bathrooms with more than 30 other students. And so when someone is using the only shower, everyone is forced to queue at the one remaining toilet. Fellow students, male and female, need to stroll through your bedroom in order to get to the other bathroom. Due to the delays typical of NSFAS funding, our students struggle to buy and cook food. But there's a further problem. Electricity in the house is only available when one of the other students, with help from home, can afford to buy some electricity units. Last week, thousands of engineering students were told the colleges could not give them a date on which classes will start, as the first trimester's results still had to be released. This was despite the prescribed 10 weeks of tuition already having been shortened to only 8 weeks in order to allow for more marking time. Our student is starting to understand why the throughput rate is so low, why only 1 out of every 8 students registering for the initial intake of the National Certificate Vocational achieved the qualification in the prescribed time. Our student expected that the program would include practical skills training, but he or she soon learns that the practical component is neglected as the college is lacking the resources to pay for the consumables. No wonder our workshops are covered in dust and the equipment would not be out of place in a museum. The native curricula are completely outdated. The curriculum for a mechanic is silent on recent developments such as hybrid engines or the rechargeable batteries used in all modern electric cars. There is no reference in the curriculum to engine management systems introduced more than 20 years ago. Minister, for the first 4 months of this academic year, the students at the college referred to in my opening paragraphs did not see a cent of the promised financial support. Students have given up and returned home. Their dreams shattered and our economy robbed of a well-trained future workforce. Those that do overcome these constraints and succeed will struggle to find employment due to either the outdated curricula or this government failing to inform prospective employers of the contents of college qualifications. As a consequence, a staggering 9.5 million of our country fellow men and women are today unemployed and frankly have little prospect of getting jobs. Honourable Minister, you're a senior member of Cabinet. You can bring about a change. I plead with you, please leave no stone unturned until these issues have been addressed. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is Honourable Mavunda.
Thanks, Honorable Chair, Minister, Deputy Minister, Ministers present here, members of Portfolio Committee, the Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, in commemoration of the value placed on education by former President Nelson Mandela, on the centenary of his birth, he once articulated these profound words that I quote, "Without education, our children can never really meet the challenges they will face." Chairperson, the ANC in its policies has consistently committed on an integrated education and training system that, amongst other things, pursues skills development as a tool to develop our people and contribute to economic development of our country. This system, Chairperson, is one that has assessed and recognized prior learning and skills required through experience. In this regard, we speak of the recognition of prior learning. Education and skills are fundamental requirements for creating prosperous society, and economic development requires skills, and we need more artisans in our country. Chairperson, identification of scarce skills is a priority for the ANC in meeting the demands of a global economy. That is why the Human Resource Development Strategy of South Africa, underpinned by principles of the 1994 Reconstruction and Development Programs, remains significant, as we need to ensure that our people are trained and skilled in areas where we need them, especially in those areas where representativity of gender and race still remains a challenge. We need to continuously improve the quality of lives of our people through training and development. Chairperson, the youth are the future of the country, and that is why the ANC-led government has expanded vocational training, linked skills development with industrial growth and job creation, and has extended support to the youth in accessing the development skills. In this regard, Chairperson, we have sustained higher levels of investment in education and skills development. The ANC-led government believes in and has invested continuously and heavily in education and training, not only in universities, but also in technical vocational education and training. The historic decision to phase in the implementation of fee-free education for the poor and working class remains a significant, which contribute towards ensuring that these students are able to access the kinds of education. Chairperson, at the center of the skills development system is the importance of establishing a credible institution mechanisms for skills placing as identified in the National Skills Development Strategy. Chairperson, transformation is a journey with challenges. Challenges in skills development are, among others, perception of some parents over TVET colleges linking graduates to markets, students choosing some soft courses which are more hospitality and human resource in nature. Young people in their majority sees agricultural skills as a punishment. Also, Chairperson, this journey is our journey we have to travel as a country. The white paper on post-school education and training notes that establishing a good artisan training system is an urgent priority. The 54th National Conference has agreed that youth employment must be prioritized, including through effective public employment programs, internship, job placement for youth be set aside, procurement from youth-owned enterprises and youth entrepreneurs
Honorable
programs.
Member, your time has expired.
Thanks. The ANC support the budget.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I now call upon Honorable Dudley.
Thank you, Chair. Honourable Minister. The ACDP supports the objective of this budget in terms of not just expanding access and increasing student financial aid, but producing relevant mid to high level skills which must move us in the direction of greater readiness to meet the challenges of the 21st century. We also welcome the attention being given to Africanization and the decolonization of curricula. The ACDP notes that the bulk of the department's substantial increase will be spent on transfers and subsidies to universities. Now, this includes the additional 11.3 billion that government has allocated for university subsidies over the to cover the 8% tuition fee increase in the 2018 academic year for undergraduate students from families with a combined annual income of between 350,000 and 600,000, and to ensure that the universities their operating costs are adequately covered. This is important and has been important for all of us. The ACDP also notes the National Student Financial Aid Scheme will increase from 10.1 billion to 35.3 billion for the phasing in over the next few years of fee-free higher education and training for the poor and the working class. We fully support the NDP requirement that expanded access to skills programs must address the labour market's need for intermediate skills and include a practical component. And we're calling on the Minister to ensure that work opportunities and work placement, that there's a linking of work opportunities and work placements for artisans, that this becomes a priority alongside the expanding of skills training. Transfers and subsidies to TVET colleges show an increase, a substantial increase, and 4.4 billion of this will go to refurbishing campus buildings, purchasing workshop equipment, and maintaining facilities. We also note that an estimated 4,200 learners and 4,200 workers are expected to benefit from the National Skills Fund over this period. Now, it's a small but welcome extra source of help in equipping a skilled workforce. The ACDP welcomes all efforts to improve the skills of the lecturers and the performance of students, aimed at increasing the number of artisan learners qualifying. We're calling on the department to prioritize the development and implementation of a teaching and learning support plan for TVET colleges. We are calling for public TVET college examination centres to be monitored and assessed without delay. Last but not least, community education and training colleges, which primarily target youth and adults who did not complete or attend school. They will also see an increase in the budget. This will also see an increase in the budget, and the ACDP calls on the department here to ensure previously developed regulations and policies for community education and training colleges are implemented without delay, and for oversight reports to be produced in order to monitor and evaluate their performance. The ACDP will support this ambitious but responsive budget. If anyone can do it, I think, Honourable Minister, you can.
Siyabonga kumhlonishwa uDudley. Lesi isikhathi sikamhlonishwa uGodi.
Honorable Chair, comrades and honorable members. Comrade Minister, congratulations on your new portfolio. You have always demonstrated capable and exemplary leadership. The APC therefore supports this budget vote. The promise of free tertiary education was a commitment of the liberation movement. In 1994, both the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania and the ANC campaigned on that platform. That it took our youth's uprising, the destruction of property for us to formalize it, reflects how with time we might have strayed from some of our strategic goals. As Pan-Africanists, we make a strong call for the decolonization of education to project the African personality, as Kwame Nkrumah called. If we don't change the template of knowledge production, we'll be perpetuating neo-colonialism, the colonization of the mind, as Frantz Fanon so aptly wrote. I cannot agree more with you, Comrade Minister, about the importance of strengthening governance at our institutions. But more than that, accountability. As we pour more billions of rands into our institutions, there must be accountability to do away with corruption, maladministration, and waste. Comrade Minister and Comrade September, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, there must be rigorous oversight on the rands and cents. NSFAS must sort out its mess so that poor students do not suffer needlessly. This is a problem that requires sustained focus. Lastly, on this Africa Month, we remember the fighters for the cause of Africa. Comrade Boniswa Ngukana was the only female combatant in a detachment of the Azanian People's Liberation Army that was ambushed by the Lesotho Defense Force near Kasha Snake in 1987. Liabua Jonathan's government was hostile to the Africanists. She did not die in vain. We are still holding high the banner of Pan-Africanism. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kodi. Honorable Bukwa.
Thank you, Chairperson, Honourable Minister, and Honourable Members. Indeed, education is the cornerstone of the liberation movement. While access must be granted, equally success must be ensured. Once the prime challenge of gaining access has been removed, accommodation and financial support must be addressed. The higher education sector, particularly TVET colleges, does not have enough residences. Accommodation is more than merely providing a bed. It is also about the establishment of a living and learning environment. The policy of minimum norms and standards for student housing on public universities are very specific. And it has become apparent, Minister, in our oversight visits that many of these standards are not met. I'll give you an example. In Walter Sisulu University, students are subjected to inhumane living conditions with no adequate safety measures. That is why you'll note almost every year in this institution, a student dies in their residence. A sad example that we've recently heard of is that of Zolile Kumal, who was killed in her room. While I echo the sentiments of the Deputy Minister, I think it's also important for leaders to set an example and to also deal with the Manana issue. Student residences are not well maintained. In Wusu alone, we witnessed doors that were broken, more than 4 students living in a room. In the University of Fort Hare, students live in prefabs with no cooking facilities or ablution facilities. They risk their lives every day when they have to walk at night to go utilize a bathroom or a computer lab. These residences are collapsing. In Fort Hare last year, when I went into that building, I found that it had collapsed and many students were injured. Students saw the cracks, but because they had no alternative options, they endured the pain. Minister, it's appalling how these minimum standards do not apply in the TVET sector. You'll note how some college residences remain vacant due to the fact that funding from NASA's accommodation allowance does not meet the minimum cost of providing an accommodation per student. One of the key standards, which was previously alluded to, is that of safety. In the Rhodes Institution, more than 3 students this year alone have been abducted. Students in PE college have to walk constantly to go to their campuses, and they're constantly robbed, and many young females have been raped. But I want to bring and make a point clear that it's very disingenuous for Honorable Killen to even suggest that the DA does not care about its students. It is us who constantly make submissions at Portfolio Committee. It is us, whenever there's a panel setting that is setting up, we submit proposal. It is us where we govern, we ensure that students are taken care of. Honorable Mayor Ethel Trollip has ensured that students gain buildings so that they can have accommodation. He's ensured that there's a shuttle service that will take care of students. But then again, she has a political identity crisis, so we don't have a problem with her. Honorable Chairperson, as a Democratic Alliance, we believe that young people deserve better. They deserve a government who does not simply pass laws and policies, but one who ensures they're implemented. This budget does not adequately address the injustices that our students are subjected to, nor does it even acknowledge them. More funds need to be made available, not to simply ensure students gain access, but to ensure that in institutions of higher learning, they succeed. And some of us stand here today as examples of that.
Mhlonishwa Kekana.
Honorable Chair, Minister of Higher Education, Deputy Minister, Chair, members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen. I rise to support this historic budget today. Before I go into my speech, I want to quickly just respond to a few outrageous things that were said here. The one starting with Professor Belinda Bozzoli, who said that the ANC is incompetent. I want to start and quote what Julie Gillian said when she said, when she said the DA could not care about the poor children that education has to address. This is because DA actually wouldn't care about poor children because they created conditions of poverty in this country. You see, I don't like going back to history all the time when I speak here, but if we must be told that the ANC is incompetent while the ANC is trying to address the competency of the days of segregation and caliber before apartheid, and apartheid took over from there and consolidated, and the two people, National Party and DA, Calabar's days and apartheid's days are here. Who created the condition of incompetency? I mean, if they said during Calabar and during apartheid, blacks are not allowed to be engineers, what kind of nonsense law is that? And after you deny people to be engineers, you turn around and say people are incompetent. The ANC is trying to address that history. It is trying to make blacks competent today. And because it has taken so long to deny, those denials have taken so long, it is also not an easy thing to address overnight. Now, for my speech, I think we must all celebrate. We must all celebrate the fact that irrespective of all the denials and all the discriminations, today, for the first time in the history of mankind in this country, everybody is allowed to go to school freely. And the ANC has made resources available through its budget for the poor to also afford education. Because it is one thing to say people can go to school, but those that are holding resources, if they don't free resources, then people can't go to school. I want to say the budget for the last 30 years has released about 16 billion rands to higher education. And 4.4 billion it is for technical colleges. This is because in our manifesto in 2014, our people said we must expand technical colleges so that we acquire the necessary skills that were denied in the past and develop this country. I must emphasize that development is about people. That is why all the system of apartheid and segregation try to deny people, because they know development is about people. Human resource development is number one. And when we tackle in that and try to liberate our people so that they can create whatever they need in this country, like jobs, whatever they need to develop, there's so much noise that goes with it. But I really, I think all of us must appreciate the fact that the ANC government is serious about liberating our people. because real liberation is killing these people and educating these people that were denied by forefathers of Bezoli and...
Honorable Member, your time has expired.
Okay. Just lastly, Chair, in the past, protest has always been allowed, but protest that bans science building cannot be allowed. The ANC support, I nearly forgot.
Thank you, Honorable Kekana. I now call upon the Minister to wrap up the debate.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I would like to begin by thanking all honorable members who participated in the debate without referring in any manner to the quality of their contributions. I think several members forgot that this is the vote of higher education and training and seemed to strain into other areas. Now, I must say, Chairperson, I've been called many, many names in my life, but I have never been called incompetent by anyone, and I am not an incompetent person by any means. I also wish to draw to the Honorable Bozoli's attention that this incompetent ANC she refers to, this conservative ANC, has given rise to increased student headcount enrollments of 975,837 in 2016, up from 495,348 in 1994. That the university participation rate in South Africa has increased to just under 20%, up from 15.4% in 2003. That this incompetent ANC government, so unconcerned about change, has progressively led to a student population of 72% African students, 17% white, 6% colored, 5% Indian in 2016, up from the statistics we inherited from apartheid. This progressive ANC government has led to more women students than men in higher education, above 58% since 1994. This progressive ANC government has ensured an increase in TVET enrollments up to 800,000 in 2016, more than doubling from the numbers we had in 2010. Over 50 billion rand has gone to support poor students who would never have had the opportunity to enter higher education had these funds not been made available. So I think I prefer the progressive ANC government than any government that the Honorable Bozoli would support. I also agree, Honorable Chairperson, with those members who have pointed to the dismal situation of threat and danger and even murder that confronts young women on university campuses. And Honorable Mkhaliphi, I agree with you. As a mother, this is something that makes me cry. However, it is not security which will address this on its own. It is changing young men and the power relations between girls and young men on our campuses. We have to change the attitude of men in our country, not to believe that women are their property and that they can treat us in any way that they want. And there is no government that can do this. It's a society that will inculcate such a change. But I absolutely agree with you that we must address these very terrible problems. Now, as part of my contribution, I indicated the investments we are beginning to make in providing infrastructure on our campuses for accommodation as well as learning infrastructure, Honorable van der Westhuizen, for workshops, for appropriate equipment in our TVET colleges. So, given that we have announced the actions we're taking and the funding available, I'm not sure why there's a suspicion that we will not provide such infrastructure. It will be done, and I'm fully aware of the dismal conditions of many accommodation facilities on our campuses, both the historically disadvantaged institutions as well as the historically advantaged institutions. And this is why government is making billions of rands available to build more beds both on campuses as well as off campuses. The men and women up here who are leadership in higher education and training in our colleges and in our universities know that those billions have begun to be allocated and that new facilities will be available for our young people within the next few years. So the ANC government is responding, the ANC government is acting, the ANC government is progressive. And honorable members, I certainly, as the competent Minister of Higher Education and Training, support this budget vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Members are reminded that at 16:25, the debate on small business development budget vote will take place here in the National Assembly chamber. The debate on tourism budget vote is taking place in the old Assembly chamber now. And the debate on women budget vote is taking place in committee room E249. That concludes the debate and the business of this mini plenary session. The mini plenary will now rise.